Hi guys, it's me, Charles Leclerc, and welcome this evening to the weekend preview for this weekend's 2022 Belgian Grand Prix. Finally, Formula 1 is back after a 4-week hiatus, obviously for the summer break. To be honest, the summer break has gone by very quickly, so yeah, great to be back for another Grand Prix. To be honest, it feels like it's only been a week or two since the last Grand Prix in Hungary. And this is, of course, the beginning of a triple header as well. Next weekend will be Zandvoort in Holland and then Monza in Italy. But yeah, this weekend we're at Spa Francorchamps in Belgium, in the Ardennes Forest. And yeah, I cannot wait for this weekend's Grand Prix. As long as it's not washed out and we can't race because it's too, the rain is too heavy like we had last year, I'm sure this weekend is going to be a pretty exciting Grand Prix. As we know, you can overtake at this track pretty easily. And with these new cars that are, a lot better at following another car, I have no doubt that we're going to get some great racing this weekend. Whether it be at the front or in the midfield, we're going to have a very exciting Grand Prix on Sunday. And to be honest, an exciting weekend in general. If you look back at history here at Spa, we don't really tend to get a boring weekend. There tends to be something quite exciting going on, whether it be only in qualifying or on the race day on Sunday. So, yeah, I think it's going to be a pretty good weekend. I hope all you guys are doing well after, the summer break we've had. Hopefully, you'll be joining me tonight in previewing this weekend's Grand Prix. And hopefully you'll be joining me for all of the content I have for this weekend. I will remind you guys later in the stream what the content is for this weekend. I did post it also in my community tab. It's the second post down at the moment. So if you want to go check that out to see what my exact schedule is for this weekend, then make sure to go and look on that. But yeah, great to see you all. And no matter what time it is in your part of the world, no matter what part of the world you're from, hopefully you're all having as best a day as possible. And what we're going to be doing this evening is going through the teams, previewing how I think they're going to do. And also we will get into a couple of other things. We'll get into the technical directive that is coming into force here at Spa that has been talked about in the last few weeks. I'm going to get into pretty much what the technical directive is. Looking at just what it was trying to combat and try and solve in terms of the problems that they were having with enforcing the regulations when it came to the flaws, and also look at some analysis from a journalist to see just how much it could affect things, mainly at the very top of the field, but really throughout the entire field. This weekend, and not just this weekend, but from now on. We'll get into that, and also I will get into the news yesterday that Daniel Ricciardo and McLaren have parted ways for next year. Obviously, Ricciardo will do the rest of this season, and then he will next season be racing either for another Formula 1 team, or he won't be in Formula 1 at all. So, yeah, we'll get into that as well, and we'll get into a couple quotes, and even probably watch the video of Ricciardo, announcing or talking about him, not being able, or not being at McLaren for next season. We'll probably get into that later on. And also, when I talk about the teams in this stream, and, go through team by team like I normally do, I am going to, when I talk about how I think they're going to do for the weekend, I am going to talk about it from the basis of what I have seen so far this season. Of course, with this new technical directive, it could possibly change the order about, but until I see proper evidence of one team being a lot quicker or one team being a lot slower than they were previously because of this technical directive, I am going to base my predictions and analysis off what we've seen, say, in the last few races before the summer break. So, just to let you guys know, in case I get it wrong, and hello to you guys in chat that I can see you at the moment. And before we get into the teams, let's get into the championship standings. Just to remind you guys of how things are going into the second half of the season, pretty much in 2022. So the driver's standings, obviously Max Verstappen is going to win the World Championship on the driver's side. He is 80 points clear of Charles Leclerc. And really, and I'll get into this obviously more so with Leclerc and Ferrari in a moment, but with Leclerc taking or having to take more penalties than Max and Red Bull, there's a good chance that Max Verstappen could have the championship wrapped up in about 6 weeks from now. And when I mean wrapped up, I mean officially he is world champion. We could be in that position in about 5-6 weeks' time, so around the Japanese Grand Prix. So it might not be very long until Max is officially crowned as your world champion. And then Leclerc is only 5 points clear of Sergio Perez in second. Russell is fourth, Carlos Sainz fifth, Lewis Hamilton sixth. And really, it is a 5-way fight for second in the Drivers' Championship. And anyone in that 5 could end up finishing in second. And then the rest, the rest of the top 10 is Lando Norris in P7, Esteban Ocon P8, Valtteri Bottas in P9, and Fernando Alonso in P10. And then on the constructors' side, Red Bull leading by almost 100 points, 97 points to be exact. And yeah, they've got the Constructors' Championship absolutely wrapped up, and they'll probably wrap up the Constructors' title officially around, say, the Japanese Grand Prix as well. It's a shame Honda aren't officially still with them, because that would be great if they did it at that Grand Prix for Honda and obviously the Japanese public. But then, yeah, Ferrari, obviously, massively behind. They're not going to win the Constructors' title this season. And really, their fight is to keep hold of second place, because Mercedes are only 30 points behind, and Mercedes are getting better all the time and are performing better than Ferrari at the moment, period. Alpine are fourth, 4 points clear of McLaren in fifth. Of course, that is a massive fight in the midfield. And then you've got Alfa Romeo sixth, Haas seventh, AlphaTauri eighth, Aston Martin 9th, and Williams 10th. And I'd also say, yeah, I'd say the other fight in the midfield in the constructors table is probably between Alfa Romeo and Haas for 6th, which is a very important position, considering those two teams have been, in the 2-3 years previous to this, quite low down in the constructors table. So they'll want to get, obviously, that extra money that they've missed out on in the past couple of years. But I think we will get just straight into it, and let's go on to Red Bull Racing. And obviously they have been the best team this season, haven't had probably the quickest car at every single Grand Prix, or obviously they haven't had the quickest car at every single Grand Prix, but they haven't had the absolute clear best car this season, is what I was trying to say. But despite that, they have been clearly the best team in 2022. 13 races so far this season, 9 race wins for Red Bull, 8 for Verstappen, 1 for Sergio Perez. And unless Max Verstappen is taking a grid penalty for a new ERS, which I know Helmut Marko said coming out of, I think, Hungary, that both Red Bulls would have to take a new ERS, which would incur a penalty. Unless that happens for Verstappen this weekend, then I think Red Bull will absolutely win the Grand Prix this weekend. The only thing really that could stop them is wet weather coming at the wrong time, say on race day. If it's a dry weekend though, then I think Red Bull with Max Verstappen will win the Belgian Grand Prix. Because obviously this track is a high-speed circuit. Yeah, there are plenty of corners in the mid-sector. A lot of them, though, are high-speed. It's not like proper medium or slow-speed corners like, Ferrari really like, or, Mercedes. Obviously, they like the high-speed corners. And yeah, there are plenty of high-speed corners, but I just don't think they'll be able to have enough in those high-speed corners to really fight Red Bull massively this weekend. And they are, Red Bull, the clear favourites to win this Grand Prix this weekend. And when you consider that it is very likely, and we heard about this from the Hungarian Grand Prix, it is very likely that Charles Leclerc in the Ferrari is going to be taking a grid penalty this weekend and will be starting at the back. I'll just quickly go to Twitter to see what the exact information on that is, because I did see talk about it earlier from I think certain journalists, so I'll just quickly have a look. But if that is true, that Leclerc is having a penalty for this weekend, then I mean, Carlos Sainz is good, obviously. He's not a terrible driver, but I don't think he can overcome his own team's incompetence to be able to win the Grand Prix this weekend. And here we go. So, according to Giuliano De Chessa, which is a F1 journalist, FIA accredited journalist, he says no official confirmation for Ferrari yet, but according to him, Leclerc will have a new fresh power unit, including the updated hybrid system, MGUK, and advanced battery. That would mean a start at the back of the grid on Sunday. And according to the article, Carlos will not get a new PU, so only Charles. So Carlos Sainz will probably take a penalty, maybe at Zandvoort or maybe at the Singapore or Japanese Grand Prix. I don't see Ferrari taking a grid penalty for the Italian Grand Prix, because obviously that's a massive PR event for the team. So, yeah. If that is true, that Charles Leclerc is going to be starting at the back, and Max Verstappen does not take an ERS penalty for a new, ERS this weekend, then Max Verstappen will win the Grand Prix this weekend. And in terms of where will Red Bull take their new ERSs with both drivers, I think Verstappen will probably take a new ERS at Monza. The reason being is because, this is kind of a home Grand Prix for him, this Belgian Grand Prix. And obviously, next weekend is the Dutch Grand Prix, which is his official home Grand Prix. So I don't think they'll want to take a grid penalty with him when he could possibly win both of those races. And then the Italian Grand Prix, I mean, Max, without a penalty, probably would win that Grand Prix, but he has to take it eventually. And with Sergio Perez, I think Perez is probably likely to take a new ERS maybe this weekend. I could see possibly them doing it at Zandvoort, but it's probably going to be this weekend with Perez, and we'll see confirmation of that. But yeah, that's what I think is going to happen in relation to that. But I know obviously the technical directive could play a role, and obviously we'll get into that a bit more later on as to just what type of role that could play with the pace of the cars and the pecking order in Formula 1 currently. But even if Mercedes close the gap to Red Bull and Ferrari by 2-3 tenths of a second, which is the rumoured time difference in Mercedes' favour that it would be with this new technical directive, they would be, 2 or 3 tenths of a second closer. Even with that, because it's such a long lap here at Spa and the gaps are always elongated compared to obviously a lot of tracks on the calendar, and given that this track will suit Red Bull the best out of any team, I just think Red Bull will have too much over Mercedes and Ferrari. So yeah, I think Red Bull win the Grand Prix this weekend, and Max Verstappen, I think, as long as he's not having a penalty, I think Max Verstappen is going to win the Belgian Grand Prix this weekend. Qualifying, though, might not be smooth sailing. I'm not necessarily sure that Red Bull will, dominate qualifying. I think you could see a surprise, especially if it does rain. But yeah, for race day, I think Verstappen is going to win again, unless he has a penalty. But let's get into some stats regarding Red Bull coming into this Belgian Grand Prix weekend. So Max Verstappen did officially win last year's Belgian Grand Prix, even though it wasn't really a race, and has only one win at Spa, being that one last year. Red Bull have won at Spa 4 times since 2011. The other 3 wins, other than last year, were Daniel Ricciardo in 2014 and Sebastian Vettel in 2011 and 2013. So, yeah, except for last year, it was quite a barren run for them. And so far this season, Red Bull have won 69% of the races in 2022. And again, despite not having clearly the best car this season, they have absolutely aced it in the races. And really, except for a couple races here or there, they've done as well as they possibly could have. Because obviously you can't be perfect in the races and always get the best result possible. There are going to be the occasional slip-ups, but they've really done a superb job in the races, you have to say, with Red Bull. But now, we will go on to the Ferrari team, the meme team in 2022. Not just in 2022, but just period. And yeah, the first half of the season was, well, hilarious. And was a great guidebook of how to throw away a championship in half a season. Not even a full season, just half a season with them. Because obviously Charles Leclerc was leading the Drivers' Championship by 46 points over Max Verstappen. Who was always going to be his main rival for the title this year. And then, 3 races later, Verstappen took the championship lead. And now, 10 races later, after that Australian Grand Prix where Leclerc pulled out a 46-point lead over Verstappen, Max is now leading by 80 points. That's a 126-point swing, is it? So, yeah. Just an absolutely hilarious season so far, to be honest. Obviously not hilarious for Ferrari fans, but yeah, in regards to this weekend, Charles Leclerc, I think, will take that penalty. I just don't see why they would take the penalty for the new, like I said, the updated hybrid system and all the other stuff. I don't see why they would take that at any other track, because, Zandvoort, you're not going to be able to fly through the field. From starting with from the back of the field, because Zandvoort is a pretty hard track to overtake at, and obviously they're not going to take a penalty with Charles Leclerc at the Italian Grand Prix because, again, for PR reasons. So, yeah, with Leclerc taking the penalty, that means that Carlos Sainz is the only one who can actually win the Grand Prix this weekend for Ferrari. One big problem is that Carlos Sainz has literally zero luck around this track. Carlos Sainz has not only retired from this race a couple of times, he's also had, I think, 2 DNSs in 2019 and 2020 for McLaren. Carlos Sainz didn't even start the race because of technical issues. That's how unlucky Carlos is at this track. And I don't think Carlos has done... Let me just look, see what Carlos's record is at Spa. I think he's only finished the race here twice out of like 6 or 7 races, and again, 2 of them have been DNSs. So in 2015 he retired from the race, 2016 he retired, 2017 he finished in the points, 2018 he finished in P11. And then, 2019... 2019 it says he didn't... He says he retired from the race. Let's look. Well, he retired on lap 1 with power loss, so it was, basically it did not start. Not officially, though. And then, 2020 did not start. And then last year, he finished 10th, but obviously we didn't have a race last year, so... Carlos Sainz has absolutely no luck around this circuit. So if you're hoping that Carlos is going to somehow pull it together this weekend and win the Grand Prix for Ferrari, it's not going to happen. Ferrari have, I would say, probably only a 10 to 15% chance of winning the Grand Prix this weekend. Not only because this track is not going to suit them that much, but because Leclerc, who is so good around this track, is taking his penalty, most likely. So, yeah. If you're a Ferrari fan, forget about this weekend. I think Zandvoort next weekend is more likely to be a win for Ferrari because that track will suit their car way better than this one here at Spa. And with Leclerc's penalty, there's nothing really I think Ferrari can do. And I'd be surprised, very surprised, if Ferrari outscored Mercedes this weekend. Of course, they're only 30 points clear of Mercedes, so you never know what the gap could be after this Grand Prix. It could be only 15 points or 20 points between those 2 teams. But let's get into some stats regarding Ferrari coming into this Grand Prix. Charles Leclerc does have a race win here at the Belgian Grand Prix from 2019. That was his first ever win in Formula 1. What an emotional victory it was as well. And a brilliant drive, I have to say, from Leclerc. He thoroughly deserved to win that Grand Prix. Ferrari have only won the Belgian Grand Prix twice since 2010 with that win, in 2019, but also Sebastian Vettel won this race in 2018. To be honest, though, if you look at the races since 2010, except 2018 and 2019, Ferrari have never really had great race results here. 2010, 11, 12, they weren't on the podium here. 2013, Alonso did finish in second. But then in 2014, 15, and 16, they weren't on the podium. 2017, they finished second. And then, 2018 and 2019, they won. But again, other than that, been quite a bad track for them on race day. So, again, don't expect really anything from Ferrari this weekend. And Josiah's saying in the chat, with the illegal engine tax, that definitely did help quite a bit that weekend. But, still, the drive that he put in was still a great one. But, Ferrari are Ferrari. They're not going to win this weekend. We know that. Inevitably, a big mistake will be made when they are maybe in a position to actually fight for the victory this weekend. Now, we'll go on to the Mercedes team. And Mercedes have very big hopes for this weekend. By the way, guys, I will come to your comments in the live chat in a few moments' time. So make sure to post your comments in chat and, what you think of the teams and how you think Red Bull, Ferrari, Mercedes, and the midfield teams are going to do this weekend. Let me know in the chat, and also let me know what you think of, the technical directive for this weekend and all of that. Would be great to hear what you guys have to say. But, for Mercedes, this could be their, maybe not their first race win of the season, but it could be a real turning point for Mercedes, because if this technical directive does put them 2 or 3 tenths of a second closer that they think they will be with this technical directive, that's the estimation from Mercedes, is that it will put them 2 to 3 tenths of a second closer than they have been as of late. But also, they are bringing, according to certain rumours, they are bringing a big upgrade for this weekend's race. And if that is true, and they are just with the technical directive alone 2 to 3 tenths of a second closer, then this weekend could be the absolute official confirmation that no matter the track, Mercedes are back to being a running, race-winning, or at least race-win contending team in Formula 1, because they have been here or there this season contending for race wins. Say in Hungary, obviously they were on pole position and they could have won the race if Lewis Hamilton had started a lot higher up, if Hamilton not had his issue in qualifying. Maybe at Silverstone, Mercedes could have won there as well. But if those two things go in their direction, the technical directive giving them, again, that couple extra tenths of a second, and the new upgrade really does work for them, then, I think we could see Mercedes right back to where I think we all want them to be. And I know there are lots of people out there that are happy to see that Mercedes aren't dominating, which I completely understand. And, even happy to see Mercedes be so poor as they have been this season compared to what we've seen in the past few years. But you cannot deny having 3 teams, front-running teams, fighting for race wins and pole positions is exactly, realistically, what Formula 1 needs. Obviously, it'd be great if we had even more teams fighting up there, but realistically, 3 teams at most is what you're going to get. Again, realistically, at most, for fighting for race wins and pole positions. And this season has been a good season. It's not been terrible or way worse than expected, but it definitely could have been better. One reason is obviously the championship fight is over and has been over for a few races now. And that's a shame because I was hoping we'd get another close title fight to the end of the season. But another big reason why this season hasn't quite been as exciting as last season is because we haven't had Mercedes up there consistently fighting with Ferrari and Red Bull. If we did, I have no doubt the races this season would have been way, way better, especially at the start of the season, where the races were good, but not, not quite great, and weren't really getting close to great either. So I really hope Mercedes this weekend are, with this upgrade and the technical directive, I really hope they are now going to be back to being a front-running team, because it would be great for Formula 1. And because the championship fight is over, it would be a great thing for the rest of the season if that was the case, that we had, Mercedes, Ferrari, Red Bull, the top three teams fighting for wins and poles for the rest of the season, because it would mean it wouldn't be just predictable every weekend as to what's going to happen. So, yeah, that's my hope coming into this weekend. And I have no reason to believe that Mercedes won't get a good result this weekend. To be honest, I think a double podium for them is pretty likely, considering Leclerc's taking a penalty and maybe Sergio Perez will as well. And with the pace they've shown before the summer break and how much closer they were getting to the top two teams before the summer break as well, I have no reason to believe that they're going to be disappointing this weekend or poor. And we know both drivers are very good around this circuit. Obviously, George Russell qualified second and finished, obviously, in second in the Williams in the wet conditions. So it'll be interesting to see how he does this weekend compared to Lewis Hamilton. And obviously, Lewis here has done well in the past. So, yeah, I think Mercedes will have a good weekend. And I do think they will outscore Ferrari in this weekend's Grand Prix. But I don't think they'll be able to win this Grand Prix, because I just think Verstappen in that Red Bull will be just too quick on race day. But if they could seriously contend for victory, that would be brilliant if they could. But let's get into some stats regarding the Mercedes team. And yeah, Lewis Hamilton has won the Belgian Grand Prix 4 times since 2010. He won this race in 2010 with McLaren, and also won here in 2015 with Mercedes, and also 2017 and 2020. And Mercedes, sorry. Oh, God. That was a big burp that came on. Mercedes have won the Belgian Grand Prix 4 times since 2015, with Hamilton 3 times, but also Nico Rosberg in 2016. But Mercedes have also gone now 14 races without a win. Their last win in Formula 1 was Saudi Arabia in 2021. Obviously, they've broken the streak of not having pole positions for quite a while, because obviously Russell and the Mercedes got pole in Hungary, so they've thankfully got back on top of that. But now it's just, they need to conquer the streak of the streak of races they haven't won since. And I think 14 races without a win. Actually, I've just seen. Oh, I'm such an idiot. I've accidentally put with a win in the stat. I'm so sorry about that, guys. I'll cut back from that so you don't have to. You guys don't have to look at that. I'm such a fucking idiot. I will make sure to change that before we get into the rest of the weekend. I'm such an idiot. What do you call it? I think 14 races without a win. I think that's the longest streak they've gone without a victory since the 2012/13 season. So you're looking at pretty much 10 years since their last race, or since their, a drought, I guess you could call it, for them. So, yeah, we'll see if they can really challenge for victory this weekend. Hopefully, they will be able to challenge for victory at every Grand Prix remaining for the rest of the season, because, again, that is exactly what we need. And now we'll go on to McLaren. This will be the final team we'll go on to, guys, before I come to you guys in the chat. So make sure to keep your comments coming. And, yeah, McLaren 5th in the championship. Obviously, they've had a very busy summer break, as we've seen. Daniel Ricciardo has been announced, was announced yesterday, that Ricciardo would be leaving McLaren at the end of the year, and they are parting ways, and McLaren have secured a deal basically to pay off Daniel Ricciardo not to race for them next year. And it is sad that the partnership has come to an end, but Ricciardo just hasn't been good enough. Maybe McLaren could have done better in maybe helping him out, but Ricciardo just ultimately has not been good enough in the McLaren. And obviously, it looks as though that Oscar Piastri is going to be replacing him in that team. Again, I will get into more in depth into the Daniel Ricciardo situation later in this stream, because we are going to look at a couple quotes and also get into get into the Daniel Ricciardo clip that was uploaded to Twitter by Ricciardo of him talking about, why he's leaving McLaren, and just to hear what he had to say. But yeah, sad with that. But in terms of this weekend, McLaren are going to struggle. There's no doubt about it. Alpine are going to pretty clearly be quicker than them this weekend. The last couple races, McLaren did pretty decent with their new upgrade that they made to the side pod. But those races and those tracks were going to suit their car anyway a bit more than other tracks, say like the Red Bull Ring or Silverstone. So, yeah, McLaren really did the best they could in those couple races in Paul Ricard and in Hungary. But with this track, I just don't see how they could possibly be successful this weekend. They need to really be praying for rain, because McLaren have the draggiest car on the grid. Meaning, obviously, that the more drag you have, the less straight line speed you have. And that's probably the number one reason why McLaren have been a bit worse than they were last season, but so much worse, I would say, than expectation would have them coming into 2022. So, yeah, McLaren are going to struggle this weekend. I think the best they can hope for, because they are going to be quite clearly slower than Alpine, who have a better car for this type of circuit. The best they can hope for is Lando Norris in the top 10, say 8th or 9th at best, and then with Daniel Ricciardo, I don't know, somewhere in Q2, 12th, 13th, maybe at best, and then maybe grab 2 to 3 points in the Grand Prix. But realistically, I just don't see how they beat Alpine this weekend. I think they'll go a lot better next weekend at the Dutch Grand Prix at Zandvoort. So, yeah, it's not the absolute end of the world for McLaren. I think they will still have some races this season where they're pretty quick, but around this track, I just don't see how they can really compete with Alpine with the amount of drag they have on their car. So, yeah, if you're a McLaren fan, do not expect that much this weekend from them. I just want to, though, read out, or actually I'll show it on screen quickly. Let me just make sure I've got nothing showing that shouldn't be. Right, let me just show this on screen. So this guy, Toby Grunner, he's a journalist for Automotor and Sport, you can see there. He's a very good one as well. And says, and he tweeted this 25 minutes ago, he says, "We hear rumours that several drivers will get new power units at Spa, resulting in grid penalties. Even the championship contenders, Leclerc and Verstappen, might be among them. Decision probably after Friday practice." So we'll see what happens with that. Again, I don't think Verstappen will take a penalty this weekend. I think he'll take it for Monza instead, but we'll see what happens with that. But obviously, when it's announced who is taking grid penalties, I'll let you guys know as soon as possible. But yeah, McLaren, they'll be at best the 5th quickest team this weekend. Maybe even slower than that. And who knows if the technical directive will affect them more so than other teams. If it does affect them, that technical directive, and loses them an extra 2-3 tenths of a second or even more compared to the time they're going to lose this weekend anyway with their draggy car, then they could really struggle this weekend, McLaren. But yeah, it's going to be not a great weekend for the team. But let's get into some stats regarding McLaren. Also, Daniel Ricciardo, who is, historically speaking, pretty good around this Spa Francorchamps circuit. Daniel Ricciardo does have one race win at the Belgian Grand Prix, that's from 2014, and two other podium finishes from 2016, where he finished in second, and 2017, where he finished third. And Ricciardo did finish last year's Grand Prix here at Spa in fourth. Would have been very interesting to see if the race had actually happened, whether he could have been on the podium that weekend in the race. Because with the top three, I mean, who knows what would have happened with them. So, yeah, it would have been interesting to see what he would have done in that Grand Prix, considering how well he did in qualifying. But Daniel has not had a top 6 finish since the Australian Grand Prix, which again was about, 11 races ago? So, it's been a long time. And before then, his last top 6 finish, I think, was Saudi Arabia in 2021. So, not had that many of them. Really, if you look back in the last year or so, he's not had an absolute ton of top 6 finishes. Not as many as he had, obviously, with Renault in 2020. But I will move back on to these pictures and some other pictures as well. And guys, in the chat, let me know, for the top 4 teams, Red Bull, Ferrari, Mercedes and McLaren, how do you think they will get on this weekend at Spa? Let me know in the live chat and I'll get to your comments in a moment. For anyone new watching, just want to say don't forget to subscribe for more content like this, because I will be live tomorrow and also on Saturday and Sunday for full coverage of this weekend's Grand Prix. Tomorrow I'll be live at 6 PM UK time to fully preview qualifying. And then on Saturday, I'll be live from 11:45 AM all the way through till 4:30 PM. 11:45 AM till 1 PM, we're going to be covering the Practice 3 session by doing a watch-along for that. And then from 1 PM till 3 PM, we'll be build up to qualifying, and then a qualifying watch-along from 3 till 4 PM, and then a reaction about half an hour after that session is finished. And then on race day, on Sunday, I'll be streaming from 12 PM till 5 PM. 12 till 1:30 is the build-up to the race. And then 1:30 till 4 PM will be the race watch-along. UK time, obviously. And then for about an hour after the race finishes, I will be reacting to the Grand Prix. So if you are new to the channel, if you want to be around for that content, then make sure to subscribe to the channel. And for everyone watching, don't forget to smash the like button and share this video and channel everywhere you can. And also, don't forget to follow me on Twitter at ChazHD5. But I'm going to quickly just clear my throat and have a drink, and then I'll get to your comments, guys, in just a moment. Alright, so let's see what you guys are having to say. Good evening, good afternoon, good morning to everyone in the chat and everyone watching. Great to see you all. Sparky Pete says, I see Red Bull slowing down on purpose at one point once Max wins, so next year they don't get stuff outlawed like they did for Merc for 6 years. I see what you mean, but I don't see that happening, because I mean the FIA, if it is indeed the case that Red Bull and Ferrari were gaining quite a bit from these flexi floors that we'll get into later. And obviously the FIA have made now amendments to the regulations for next year to prevent that happening from now on, but also for next season as well. I don't see them really having a reason to slow down. To be honest, there's 22 races on the calendar. I mean, if they've won 69% or 70% of the races so far this season, and they've got 9 wins out of 13. They should probably just keep going after they've won the championships, because they could end up winning like 15, 16, maybe even 17 of the 22 races this season, which would be a very good record for this season, considering they weren't dominantly quick over any other team, really. They've been pretty much on the same pace as Ferrari. It's not been as though Red Bull have dominated the season in terms of outright pace. McLaren F1 races. Hey, Chaz, I love your sarcastic assassin-like take on Ferrari. Lol, burn Scuderia. Cheers for that. And yeah, I think this weekend, if Leclerc does take that penalty, I don't think we'll get that much hilarity really this weekend from Ferrari. But I am keen to see what they have in store for us for the rest of the season. I think there's a very good chance that Ferrari might not win another Grand Prix this season. I mean, if you look at the Grand Prix left, the only tracks I think they could win at are probably the Dutch Grand Prix at Zandvoort, Singapore, probably the US Grand Prix. I think they'll have a decent chance there. Mexico, probably that's it. That's what, 4 races out of the final 9. So yeah, there's a chance they might go the rest of the season without winning a race. If they do win a race, it'll probably only be 1. I don't see them getting like 2 or 3 wins before the end of the season. I mean, they're on what? Ferrari have won, what do you call it? Ferrari have won 4 of the races so far this season. Hold on a minute. When I went to this stat, I don't think I actually read this out with this Ferrari stat, that yeah, Ferrari have won, if you're wondering, 30% of the races in 2022. That's the rate of them winning Grand Prix. But yeah, they've got 4 wins this season out of 13, when really it should be like 8 out of 13. So yeah, very disappointing. Let's look at some other comments here in the chat. Hello to Music Monster Man. He says, I'm super out of the loop. Missed the past 3 races. Assume Max is still ahead in the championship. Yeah, I can show the championship standings again if you want. And you can see here, he's 80 points clear. 80 points clear. And I think Verstappen, he needs to be, how many points clear? He needs to be 105 points clear, I think, or 104 points clear after the Japanese Grand Prix to be world champion. And he's 80 points clear now. So he needs to outscore Leclerc by 25 points between now and the checkered flag in Japan, and he'll be world champion. He could even be world champion in Singapore if he... if by the checkered flag or the end of that race he's 30 points clear, then he would be world champion over Leclerc, or whoever's second if he has that gap. So, like I said, in 5 or 6 weeks' time, Verstappen probably will be world champion. So it's going to happen pretty soon. And it's been a while since we've had a title. Not decided, I won't quite say that, but a title won in a part of the world which isn't the Middle East or North America or South America. But the last time it was officially won in Asia or Europe, it was 2011 with Sebastian Vettel. So yeah, it's been a while. It was Vettel, wasn't it, in India in 2013? That was, I think that was the last time it was decided, or not decided, but officially won in either Asia or Europe. So yeah, it's been a while since we've had that, but it's looking likely that that is what is going to happen. Hamilton, Josiah says Hamilton has 5, 2008 robbed. Well, yeah. Officially it's 4, but yeah, he was robbed of that race, there's no doubt about it. Barky Pete says, I wish it was 14 races with a win. Abu Dhabi was Merck's last win, lol. Music Monster Man says, so crazy and sad, 21 mil, lol. Who would have guessed 2 years ago that things would have turned out this way? If you told me at the end of 2020 that Daniel Ricciardo would be out at the end of 2022 and would be, I mean, if you told me he would have won a race, I would have assumed that Ricciardo would have been clearly the best driver at McLaren and would have been a great success. But if you told me he would have won a race but had been miles off his teammate Norris, then I wouldn't have believed you, because Ricciardo in 2020 was probably one of the top 3 best drivers that season, at least top 5. I mean, he finished 5th in the championship, so I think you can absolutely say he was one of the best 5 that season, but I would probably put him as the 3rd best driver of 2020. So yeah, it's just amazing how it's turned around. I will say though, with Ricciardo, if he does go to Alpine, which is my hope and kind of my expectation as well, I still think he can turn it around. I don't think Ricciardo at the moment, I've seen enough evidence that he's absolutely finished completely. Because there have been times at McLaren, even this season, where he's had good pace. It just hasn't been enough. So yeah, we'll see. Maybe the Alpine team will suit him better. Obviously, you know, he had a better time at Alpine than he did McLaren. So yeah, we'll see with Daniel. McLaren F1 races would be amusing if Alonso went into full rogue driver sim mode with every move on other cars except Aston Martin, of course. Just imagine if Alonso goes full open lobby mode. Well, if we had drivers like Romain Grosjean on the grid, I think we definitely would get some open lobby type stuff happening. Josiah says, I honestly think Hamilton wins. I don't know, but he's just that guy. I think Hamilton could win this weekend. If he really bangs out a near perfect or almost perfect weekend and Max is taking a penalty, then yeah, I think it could absolutely happen. I will say though, that if it is true that Verstappen and Leclerc are taking grid penalties, then I think Mercedes could absolutely win this weekend, and probably I would put them as favourites to win this weekend if that is the case. So yeah, we'll see. Marco Catania says, can see a Sainz win in a race full of attrition and a double points finish for Williams. Yeah, that'd be pretty mental if those two things happened. A Sainz win because of, again, the bad luck he's had here, and also a double points finish for Williams. To be honest, I don't know what's going to happen this weekend. I mean, I've given my best prediction. I think Verstappen will win and Mercedes will most likely outscore Ferrari, and McLaren, I think, will be worse than Alpine. But I'm a lot less certain of what's going to happen this weekend. I think we could see Mercedes win this weekend. We could see craziness in the midfield and maybe a surprise top 5 finish for a midfield team, or maybe even a podium for a midfield team this weekend. If there is, serious unreliability or wet weather. I think, again, like I said at the very start of this stream, I think we're going to have a very exciting weekend. And with this new technical directive, if it really affects things quite a bit, then yeah, this could be a really exciting weekend. Manshur says they think Hamilton will win. Brandon R says, I'm calling a Hamilton win. Well, yeah, if Verstappen has a penalty and Leclerc does, then I think Hamilton would probably then be the favourite. Prank says Max will win at Suzuka. It's going to be orange in Japan. Yeah, pretty sure that's going to happen, because obviously Honda are still involved with Red Bull, just not officially, in the title name of their team. Prank also says Daniel should be at Alpine or IndyCar. If he doesn't race in Formula 1, I think there's a chance he could go to IndyCar. I think there's a chance. I think he even said today in a press conference that he could take a sabbatical like Fernando Alonso did, basically, for a couple of years. The problem with that is, when Alonso took his sabbatical, we all know that Alonso was still good enough easily for Formula 1, and that any midfield team that had an opening and was looking for drivers, that they would fill that seat with him. The thing with Ricciardo is, at the moment, there are doubts as to whether Ricciardo is still absolutely good enough for Formula 1 because of the way he's performed. I don't doubt he's good enough for Formula 1, but there are people out there that are doubting that. Maybe some team principals out there. So the problem might be, if he does take a sabbatical, is he might get kind of forgotten and then end up just out of Formula One. That's all the comments so far, I think, in the chat. So thank you guys for that. And yeah, make sure to keep them coming as well. And I'll get to them later in the stream. But next thing we're going to do is we are going to go onto the rest of the midfield. Obviously, Alpine and the other teams. And then, obviously, we'll get into the couple of topics I've got planned, which is the technical directive and the Daniel Ricciardo news / situation. So we'll get into that pretty soon as well. But anyway, let's get into the rest of the midfield and get into Alpine. Obviously, it's been a dramatic, to say the least, summer break for them. Fernando Alonso going off to Aston Martin for next year. That was announced the day after the Hungarian Grand Prix. Then Oscar Piastri was announced by Alpine to be replacing him. Then Piastri announced he would not be racing for them in 2023. And it looks as though Piastri is going to McLaren. Hopefully, from Alpine's point of view, they can grab Ricciardo from McLaren. I think that'd be probably the best move for them at the Alpine team. But yeah, very dramatic summer break. And thankfully for them, the racing shall return. Because other than, you know, off-the-track stuff, you know, silly season and the summer break and that, Alpine have had a very good season. 4th in the championship. That's the highest they've been in the championship since, I think, maybe at some point in 2020, where obviously when they were Renault, they were, I think at one point they were up in 3rd in the constructors table, maybe for a race or two. So it's been a while since they've been, you know, this competitive in the midfield, and they're having a very good season. And I do think they are going to finish in 4th place in the championship this season. So on track, it's a very good season, and if we focus on the on-track stuff, I think Alpine will be, in dry conditions, quite clearly the quickest midfield team here. Yeah, their car is very well suited to really any type of track layout. They have enough straight line speed to be good at a track like this, where power is important and straight line speed is important, but also enough downforce to be good enough, say, in the middle sector of this track, but also at other very aerodynamic heavy or aerodynamic important circuits, you know, like Zandvoort and Singapore and places like that. So yeah, Alpine, I think they'll be definitely the quickest midfield team this weekend. Fernando Alonso will be most likely at the very head of the midfield pack. Esteban Ocon will be decent as well. He was, I think he was in qualifying. Was he 6th or 7th? I think he was last year in the Alpine in that wet session. Obviously, he turned out to finish in that position as well, because obviously the race didn't happen. And then Ocon did finish in the points here in 2018, finished 6th for a Racing Point, and then I think 8th for Force India or 7th for Force India. So he's got a good record, Esteban, so watch out for him. And he's having a great season that not enough people are talking about, and I will, at some point, be talking about that. But yeah, Fernando, we know how great he is at this circuit. He may never have won this Grand Prix in his Formula 1 career, but if you look at his performances here, he's always been pretty competitive here. Just never, I think, had really the luck or even a car quick enough to win this Grand Prix. 2005, he finished 2nd here, but the McLarens that weekend were way too quick. Finished 3rd here in 07, but Ferrari are way too quick. When he was at Ferrari, he never had a car quick enough to win here. Finished 2nd at Spa in 2013 with a great drive, but again, the car wasn't quick enough to win that weekend. And yeah, all the other years was in a midfield team pretty much. So yeah, he's always been pretty competitive here, and I think Alonso will be finishing in qualifying. I mean, if Leclerc and Verstappen do take penalties that see him at the back of the grid, then Alonso could, you never know, end up starting the Grand Prix 5th, maybe 4th, which would be pretty exciting. But yeah, I think Alonso will do very well this weekend. So will Esteban Ocon and Alpine are going to have no doubt a very strong weekend, and I think Alpine will most likely pull out the gap they have to McLaren in the Constructors' Championship, which is currently 4 points. I think it'll probably go up to 8 or 9 points, probably after the Belgian Grand Prix has finished. And now we'll go on to Alfa Romeo, who... It's such a shame with them, Alfa Romeo, because they've had a good season. I mean, nobody predicted they'd be 6th in the Constructors' Championship at this point of the season. I think people thought they'd be probably 8th at the absolute highest. I don't think that anyone thought they'd be, up in 6th. And at one point, they were pretty competitive with Alpine, but they just have fallen off quite a bit. And they've not had a points finish since the... What Grand Prix was it? Canadian Grand Prix, where they finished 7th and 8th. So, yeah, it's been a while since Alfa Romeo have had a points finish, and not just a points finish, but a good points finish for them. And obviously the main rivals now in the Constructors' Championship are Haas F1. So what can they do this weekend to ward off the Haas team? The Haas team that I think will be pretty competitive this weekend around a track that suits them better. I mean... Alfa Romeo have had, we know, an absolute shit ton of reliability issues. I think Alfa Romeo will probably be one of the teams taking a grid penalty this weekend for a new fresh power unit, because I think Bottas had another power unit problem in Hungary, if I remember correctly. So, yeah, I think Alfa Romeo will probably be taking a penalty of Bottas. But I just don't see how they're going to really be that competitive this weekend. Alfa Romeo, to me, seem to be a team that their car really, since Monaco, where obviously, at the start of the season, they were always finishing the points, but really since Monaco, they've been quite barren when it comes to that. What they've been is a team that, they're not. They've not come to Grand Prix with a car that isn't well suited to the track. It's always been suited, kind of to a certain degree, to the track, but it's never been as well suited to whatever circuit they've been at. Say similar to McLaren or Alpine, or obviously the top teams as well. And they always tend to have a pretty decent car on race day, but just not enough to really be, getting a few points and a very good race result. So what I'm trying to say is, I think this weekend Alfa Romeo will be probably, 12th or 13th or something like that in qualifying. And in the race, they'll have a car probably quick enough to finish in the points, but it won't be... If they do finish the points, it won't be anything massive, maybe a point or maybe 2 points. And I think really that's going to be the case for the rest of the season. Alfa Romeo are just going to be, competitive enough to maybe grab a point or two at every Grand Prix for the rest of the season, but it won't be anything massive like we saw in Canada. So yeah, that's the expectation that you've really got to have with Alfa Romeo. And it's sad for them because, when we were at the Emilia-Romagna Grand Prix, Miami Grand Prix, Spanish Grand Prix, Alfa Romeo looked as though they had the best midfield car. But now that is not the case. And obviously they're not bringing any more upgrades to the car for the rest of the season. So, yeah, that's a shame. But as long as Alfa Romeo finish 6th in the championship, I don't think they'll care that much. Also, I almost forgot to mention this, but I will get into it now. It has been rumoured, but it looks as though it is absolutely going to happen. So let me just get it up quickly on Twitter, and then I'll show you guys. So, here we go. And I'll get it up on screen for you guys as well. So obviously Tammy, great person for translating articles. Probably the best Twitter account for F1, really, that I have always been, following for such a long time. Says that Sky Germany reports that Audi's F1 entry will be announced tomorrow. And there will be a press conference on Friday in Spa. and this is the post from Sky Germany, and the translation is, in all probability, Audi will enter into a relationship with Sauber in the Premier class, Formula 1. The team from Switzerland is currently in the starting lists under the name Alfa Romeo. So, and we saw, I think, rumours that Audi had bought a 75% stake in the Sauber company. Just to let you guys know, so yeah, they have the Alfa Romeo name, but it is still Sauber from, years past. So the actual company or organization, whatever you want to call them, that runs that team is still Sauber. It's not an Alfa Romeo team. It's only Alfa Romeo in name and merchandise, pretty much only. So yeah, it looks as though tomorrow we are going to get that announcement, which is great because obviously we have never had Audi in Formula 1. I think they're one of the only big manufacturers we've never had in Formula 1 at any point, whether it be engine manufacturer or their own team. And the thought, obviously we'll hear more if it is announced tomorrow as to what the actual plan is for 2026. But the thought is that, yeah, Audi will buy 75% stake in Sauber, and that it will essentially be the same as what we saw with BMW Sauber, if you remember, about 15, 16, 17 years ago, where Sauber back then were took over pretty much by BMW, and BMW pumped all the money in, brought some of their personnel in, motorsport personnel, but really it was the Sauber team with all of the funding and resources of Audi and some Audi personnel in there, and that's essentially what the Audi F1 team is going to be. It's going to be a new version of BMW Sauber, and if they turn out to be more successful than BMW Sauber, who were actually quite good for the small duration they existed, then it's going to be a very good deal and very good decision for Audi to buy an existing team, because that will see them get closer earlier to being world champions in Formula 1. Because if they were to do what Toyota did, which was the wrong decision, to start on their own, then it would take probably double the time that it would if you bought an existing team. So yeah, for Audi, if that is announced tomorrow, great news. And honestly, if they've got a good driver lineup, and if Alfa Romeo over the next 2 to 3 years are performing decently in the midfield, I think when Audi take over in 2026, I think Audi, by the very end of this decade, I think Audi could be title contenders and maybe world champions. I think that is a possibility. But we'll see, of course, in a few years' time. McLaren F1 Race says in the chat, Sauber Audi, Saudi F1, not controversial, lol. Yeah, let's hope they don't go for anything like that. Yeah, that is great news, and hopefully that is confirmed tomorrow. If it is, I will obviously get into what they had to say and what it officially means for Audi, Sauber, and Formula 1 in general. Anyway, let's move on with the rest of the teams, and we'll go next onto the Haas team. And you guys will remember from the Hungarian Grand Prix, I talked about Haas brought their big upgrade, their last upgrade of the season, but their really big one that they've been saving for a couple months. And they only had it on Kevin Magnussen's car in Hungary, and it didn't really make a difference. The Haas car wasn't really noticeably that much quicker. If it was quicker with the upgrade, it was only by maybe a couple tenths of a second, really, compared to where they've been so far this season. Mick Schumacher will now also have the upgrade, so both cars have the new Haas F1 upgrade. And Haas have been talking about how they need to maximize this upgrade a bit better, so maybe they will get more out of this upgrade this weekend and for the rest of the season than what we saw in Hungary, which was quite a disappointing showing, to be honest, considering the expectation that I had, that it would put them maybe right on the cusp of being consistent top 10 finishers in qualifying and the race. Maybe put them absolutely in that position, but we'll see if they can maximize it better. In terms of the drivers, Kevin Magnussen has never really had a great record here at Spa. I think he's had a couple decent qualifying sessions here, but in the races, I don't think he's always been that great. He obviously had that massive crash, didn't he, in 2016 in the Renault, where he crashed at the top of, was it Radion? And went into the barriers that hard, his headrest fell out, flew out of the car. So, yeah, that was a scary moment that day in that race. But what do you call it? Yeah, doesn't have a great record here, does Kevin. And with Mick Schumacher, I think Mick won. Did he win here in F2? Let me have a look with Mick. He has raced, obviously, in the past. And in 2019, actually drove his father's Jordan F1 car, I think, was it? Was it the Jordan? Was it the Benetton that he drove in 2019? Sorry, I can't remember what it was. Just trying to look. And did he win at Spa? Well, in 2020, he finished on the podium twice. And then, obviously, the 2019 race didn't happen for obvious reasons, which I'm not really keen to get into. So, yeah, it doesn't have a win here. Oh, no, he did have a win here, actually, in Formula 3, FIA Formula 3 European series. He won here in 2018. So he does have a win here. Does have some decent history here. So, yeah, we'll see what Mick can do. And really, considering that this track really does show who the best drivers in Formula 1 are, and I think this track is the best racing track in the world. That's my opinion. Spa Francorchamps is the best racing track in the world. He does need to be ahead of Kevin Magnussen this weekend. He absolutely has to. Because, again, this track is such a great test of how great of a driver you really are. And I think it would be a great, test, especially if Haas are competitive, maybe for points. On Sunday would be a great test to see just how great Mick is, or how good Mick is at the moment in Formula 1. So yeah, we'll see how he does. Hopefully he does well. Would be great to see a Schumacher do well at Spa. Obviously his dad and even his uncle did very well here at Spa. Michael Schumacher won the Belgian Grand Prix in, what was it, 92, 95, 96, 97, 2001, 2002. I think that was it. So that's how many wins? 1, 2, 3, 4, 6 wins. And I think Ralf Schumacher finished second here for Jordan. Probably would have won that Grand Prix if it wasn't for them, both being in the same team, to be honest, because Ralf, I think, was quicker in that race. That race, obviously, where Jordan got a 1-2. I think Ralf had a couple other podiums here as well at Spa. So, yeah, it's always been a great place for the Schumacher family, and hopefully it'll be a great place for them this weekend. And now we'll go on to AlphaTauri. And, yeah, I got to say, this picture is very sad. I think you guys can understand what he's doing here. Obviously, leaving flowers at the side of the track for his good friend, Anthoine Hubert, that passed away 3 years ago. It's amazing that was 3 years ago, because I'm still, a bit emotionally scarred, honestly, from that. That was such a rough weekend. Yeah, it was so bad. It was so bad. And I got to say, Pierre, what he's done since then, because obviously that weekend at Spa in 2019, that was the first weekend where he was relegated back to Toro Rosso. I've got to say, since then, he's really done his old friend proud, because what he's done since then has been incredible. He's had, 3 podiums, a race win. He had a race win. What was it? I think it was a year and a week after his friend Anthoine Hubert died. And yeah, what a win that was. Obviously, luck did play a role, but maybe it was his friend that, helped him with that luck there. But yeah, a very sad return it will be for Pierre. Not only Pierre, but also anyone who raced, alongside or knew him. Anthoine Hubert, also Charles Leclerc, who was good friends with him. But yeah, for Gasly, I'm sure it'll be a rough weekend for him when it comes to that. And then, for AlphaTauri, quickly getting into them. I don't think they're going to be that competitive. AlphaTauri have just completely dropped off the boil. I know Franz Tost said after the French Grand Prix that their new upgrade worked, but yeah. After the Hungarian Grand Prix, I have no idea. Just I have no idea how they can possibly recover from how bad they were that weekend. I mean, Pierre Gasly did pretty well in the race, but that weekend they were so poor. They were the second second slowest team, I would say. Williams, obviously, they're always going to be the slowest, but AlphaTauri were only just ahead of them in Hungary. So, yeah, AlphaTauri, very poor. And to be honest, I think with them this weekend, they're not going to be that competitive unless, for some reason, Gasly can pull out an amazing effort in the AlphaTauri car. I think with this AlphaTauri car, I mean, they've talked, AlphaTauri and Gasly's talked about how at high speed and the high-speed corners, it's a very tricky car to handle, which I think was partly the reason why in Hungary it wasn't doing well or handling well. But I just think this AlphaTauri car is just fundamentally a bad car. Because this season, except for the odd race here or there, we've never really seen them be that competitive as a team. Except for, again, the odd race. Like Baku, they were very competitive. I think Bahrain, they were pretty competitive. Maybe Miami, you could say as well. But again, those are the odd races. At 90% of the races almost this season, they've been just meh, really, compared to what they were doing last season, where Gasly was one of the best drivers last season. Definitely one of the top, 5-6 drivers on the grid. I thought he was last season with what he did in the AlphaTauri. But let me just clear my throat quick. I've always got a sore throat, as you guys know. I just want to touch back with Anthoine Hubert, and touching back with that. I think you can go back and listen to my streams from that weekend. They're still on the channel from those the streams I did and the videos I did that weekend. And yeah, it was a really rough weekend. I actually, and you could say it was a sad bit of history, but I think at the time I was recording my qualifying review after the qualifying watch along, and I recorded it during the F2 race. And you can actually hear me 5-10 minutes in say, "Oh my fucking god, what a massive crash we've just had in the F2 race." So it literally happened, the accident, in that video. Like, you can hear me react to it. It was such a big crash, I couldn't not react to it. It was horrendous, honestly. And Spa, they've made some amendments to the track, which are good, which we'll get into later in this stream. But when it was announced that he passed away, honestly, it absolutely fucking broke me. I was crying pretty much for the rest of the night, for hours. And the day after, I had the urge to cry pretty much all day. And all I could do, because I remember I didn't do a race watch along that day because I just couldn't bear it emotionally, because I probably would have ended up just crying. I remember doing a race reaction or race review, and it was really hard to do because I just didn't feel like doing it. It didn't feel like really what happened in the race even mattered. The race was pretty exciting, I remember, but I couldn't get excited about it at all because it was just such a emotionally bad weekend. And yeah, I just couldn't really feel that great about it. And yeah, it's just such a rough weekend for me. And then to be honest, when Gasly won that race at Monza, again, a year and a week later, thank God me and Nib weren't doing watch-alongs at the time, because obviously I was still a bit depressed and battling my own demons mentally. Because those last 10 laps, I was basically crying and in tears. Because it wasn't necessarily because I was... because I'm a Gasly fan or a massive Gasly fan. It was because of what had happened a year ago, because I remembered it and it just set me off that it was a year and a week before, that he won that race. But also, I was so happy for Gasly. I really wanted him to get that win because of the, emotional trauma that he suffered, I suffered, everyone suffered, and and when he crossed the line, I just broke down into tears. So thank God I did not do a race watch along, because it just would have been me and Nib crying into the mic for the last 10 laps, which I'm not sure would have been great. I mean, people probably would have took the piss out of it, even though I think it was just, raw emotion we both had. Because I remember talking to him at the time, and I think he even cried about it. But yeah, great, moment that was. And yeah, just wanted to share basically my emotions from what happened all around that time. It was a very emotional time, I think we can say, with 2019 and 2020, and obviously you guys know the struggles I had around 2020 as well. And to be honest, I think in that video I did where I said where I talked about how I basically revealed how depressed I was, I think I said that the Hubert situation did not kick off my depression. I think, looking back in hindsight, I think it did, because really August of 2019 is really when it felt like my depression, my spiral started. And it feels to me like it started then, and then I was getting as well a lot of hateful comments at the time, around that time, because of opinions I was making. So that really affected me. And then obviously, social situations, it just got worse and worse. So it was definitely a trigger for me in terms of depression. But thankfully, obviously, I'm in a much better place than I was, 2 years ago, 3 years ago. To be honest, this year is the happiest I've been mentally in my entire life. I mean, I still have the occasional, down day or week. Everyone has that in life. But instead of just constant dread and constant, depression, well, actually this year felt really, really good, which I'm sure you guys are happy to hear. And yeah, just having a great time at the moment. Absolutely having a great time. And yeah, sorry that things got a bit emotional there, if you're feeling a bit emotional. But yeah, just thought I'd share that, because obviously, it's been 3 years since Anthoine Hubert passed away, and it is still going to be something we all remember from that fateful weekend at Spa. But anyway, we'll move on from that. And yeah, AlphaTauri, I don't think will be that competitive this weekend. Aston Martin next up. Aston Martin, I mean, they're not going to bring any more upgrades this season, and we know that their car is pretty bad. The race performances, though, lately have been pretty good. Obviously, they scored points in France and in Hungary, so there is a decent chance of a points finish this weekend, where both drivers have done pretty well here in the past. Stroll, I think, is finishing the points here, I think, once or twice. And we know Sebastian Vettel, obviously, is pretty good around this circuit. Sebastian Vettel has won the Belgian Grand Prix 3 times, twice for Red Bull and once for Ferrari, and has had pole position here, I think, 2 or 3 times, I think. Let me just think. Has he had pole position 2 or 3 times? No, he's not. He's only had it once, actually, in 2011. But he's always, been pretty good around here. And I think if they do finish the points, I think it'll be Sebastian Vettel most likely in the top 10. But just don't expect in qualifying what do you call it? When it comes to qualifying, I just don't expect Aston Martin to be that competitive. I think if there is a lot of grid penalties this weekend that they are not partaking in, in taking a penalty for a new power unit element, then I think they could actually start the race in a quite a high grid position, which could help them quite a bit with their race result on Sunday. And finally, we'll go on to Williams, and if it rains, I think there's a good chance Williams could end up in the points. Maybe if someone mentioned earlier, if it's a race of attrition, then maybe you could see Alex Albon nick a point. But realistically, Williams are going to be, finishing maybe 13th and 14th or something like that at best. Their updated car obviously a lot better. It will be better suited to a track like this. They do have very good straight line speed in that Williams, but I just don't think they have still enough compared to the other teams to really be in the points on pure pace. But that is, guys, the teams and how I think they'll do this weekend. Don't go away yet because we still have stuff to get into. We're still going to get into the technical directive and the analysis about that. Also the Ricciardo news, and we'll also get into looking into the track and what it takes to have a good lap here, and just some of the track changes as well, which there have been, which I think I told you guys about. Well, let me know, guys, in the chat what you think of what I was saying about even, what I was talking about there with AlphaTauri, but as well with the midfield teams, how do you think they'll all do? Let me know in the chat. And again, for everyone or anyone, new watching, if you haven't already, don't forget to smash the like button. And let's get into some comments here in the chat. Music Monster Man says, man, the vibe in the Alpine garage is going to be so bad for the rest of the season, considering what's gone down with Alonso. Yeah, it's not going to be great, but they need to just get on with it, really. Fernando's leaving at the end of the year. It is what it is. They can't fall out with him because, they need Alonso desperately to help them finish fourth in the championship, which would be a very good season for Alpine. Paul James Squibb says, so is Mick staying at Haas then, or do Alpine have to choose between Mick and Daniel if Hülkenberg joins Haas? There are rumours that Mick could be joining the Alpine team, and there are rumours that he's also not with the Ferrari driver academy anymore. I don't know if that is true. He did actually answer a question today at the track, because obviously all the drivers at the track doing their, the media and all of that. And he did actually answer a question about, because someone asked him, why did you follow the Alpine team boss Laurent Rossi, I think it is, on Instagram, I think it was. And he said he follows all the team bosses and he likes to make sure he's following, all the relevant people in Formula One. So that's what he had to say. But, yeah, it's tricky to say at the minute what's going on. If Ricciardo is going to Alpine, like I think will happen, then I think Schumacher will stay at Haas with Kevin Magnussen for 2023. I don't think Haas will. Jesus Christ. I've just seen something which is, on Twitter. What do you call it? I don't think Haas will get rid of Mick Schumacher because I think he's still done well enough to a certain extent to be in that team. I've just seen something, though. Someone on Twitter has posted a quote from an article, which is a French article from Esteban Ocon. Someone asked Ocon who he wants as his teammate for 2023, and Ocon said, a guy with experience for sure. I hope it will be Mick Schumacher because he's a very, very good friend. So we'll see. But saying that, I mean, Mick doesn't have that much experience, so yeah, don't really understand what he means by that. But yeah, my expectation, and I guess you could call it prediction, is that it'll be Mick and Kevin still at Haas, and then Ricciardo and Ocon at Alpine, and then the rest of the lineups will be the same as we expect for the next season. Gasly and Tsunoda at AlphaTauri, Bottas and Zhou at Alfa Romeo. Obviously, Alonso and Stroll locked in at Aston Martin. And then at Williams, it'll probably be Alex Albon and Logan Sargent. That's my guess. For 2023, McLaren F1 race, and yeah, good to see a couple of people saying rest in peace, Anthoine Hubert. McLaren F1 race says, we take the mickey out of some drivers, but they are braver than me, strapping themselves into effective missiles and showing no fear. Fair play to them all, past, present, and lost. Absolutely agreed. And yeah, I criticised certain drivers plenty for, making mistakes and certain things, but I will absolutely say, they are F1 drivers, not just even F1 drivers, racing drivers are a different breed. They are so incredibly brave to do what they do on a consistent basis, and not just for a few years. You're talking, 15, 20 years, maybe even more. It's incredible what they do. Sparky Pete says, him passing away was tough. That's why I hate when I hear these old school broadcasters saying we need there to be a price to pay when drivers go around tough or dangerous corners. Crazy romanticism. Yeah. I think with gravel, having gravel on the exit of a corner, I think that's absolutely fine, because I actually think gravel is safer than having just a tarmac runoff. And I know people say, well, if you've got gravel, if the car digs in, then the car can flip. The thing is, though, because gravel slows the car down so much compared to a tarmac runoff, obviously, even if you start rolling, it doesn't affect the driver's health at all, because at the slow speed it's happening. So yeah, I don't think we've ever really seen a roll from a car in the gravel that's really been bad in terms of affecting the driver health. They haven't suffered an injury or anything like that. If you've got a tarmac runoff, we've seen way more injuries and bigger crashes from that stuff, rather than gravel runoffs. So yeah, it's good to see that we've got gravel runoffs here at Spa. Or different ones. Way to go, Chazza. Crank it up, mate. Nice one, Chazza. The way to go and crank it up, mate, was from Key Walker, by the way. Ruxfoot says, nice one, Chazza. Barky Pete says, I'm happy to hear you having a good year. Yeah, it is a good year. As well, did I announce this already? I'm not sure. I may as well announce it now. I will probably post this on my community tab in a couple weeks' time, but I may as well announce it now. Starting just after the Italian Grand Prix, which is in a fortnight, I will, guys, be starting university. Now, don't worry, there will still be plenty of content on the channel. I'm not actually going to be attending a proper university. I'm actually attending a college where you can do university studies at, and where there's an actual course and classes where you do the course. It's you can attend a college in a city, but also be doing technically still attending the university of another town, city, whatever you want to call it. That's what I'm doing. So I'm still going to be living where I am, or where I have been, and I'll still be able to do what I do on a consistent basis. But when I get close to assignment, dates for when I need to hand stuff in, content might get a bit more sparse or scarce, whatever you want to call it, around those times. But yeah, I'm very excited to go to uni. Very, very excited. And what I'm doing at uni is film, media, and photography, which is basically what I've been doing with this for the last 4 or 5 years. I've already got kind of a head start with it. And the hope is to, get, some very good qualifications out of it. Really, it's a 3-year course that I'm on. And in the third year is where I would be trying to get, if I obviously got good enough grades and, marks and that, I'd be trying to get a bachelor's in, I think, applied media is what it's called. And then if I was to get a bachelor's and get a high enough grade or mark, again, whatever you want to call it, then there's probably a decent chance I would then try for a master's in some sort of media, which you can do. So, yeah, that's looking possible, I think, for sure. And I think I can definitely do it. And then what my hope is with doing that is that... so I'm basically, especially if I get a bachelor's degree and an honours degree, and I get good enough marks to be able to do a master's for a fourth year of university. I'm basically committing myself for the next 4 years to doing that. And the reason I want to go to uni is because I want to get good enough qualifications so it can, give myself obviously better chances in real life to get a much better high-paying job. Because, I mean, when I was doing YouTube 3 years ago in 2019, I was only doing this, which is why there was so much content on the channel. I mean, I'm doing a lot more content now than I was a couple years ago, or, last year, for example, where I was only doing streaming. The reason I'm not doing as much content at the minute, maybe as I was doing 4 years ago, is because I obviously do this, but I also have a part-time job that I do like 2, maybe 3 days a week at most, that I do during the week at times. So, yeah, my hope is to, get as high qualifications or degrees as possible, and then that will get me, hopefully, in the future, a good high-paying media job somewhere in the future. Now, in terms of how will it affect YouTube, again, I am still going to do plenty of content on the channel. The content isn't really going to be affected that much. Maybe in 3-4 years' time when I'm going for like a master's, if that is true, or if that is the case, rather, that I am going for a master's, maybe the content might dip in terms of the amount of videos and streams. But obviously, if I was to get all those qualifications that I talked about and then go and get a really high-paying job, there is a chance that I could end up, not doing this YouTube anymore. What I can say is you guys don't have to worry about that, because I will be continuing to do this until probably the end of 2026 at least. Maybe even further into the future. Again, I can't guarantee that I'm going to do this for the next 10-15 years, because who knows what's going to happen with my uni stuff and life in general, but I am committing to doing this for at least the next 4.5 years. So again, you don't have to worry about me going anywhere in the next 4.5 years. And I think the things I would look at if I was to keep doing YouTube, say, into 2027, 2028, 2029, etc., what I would look at is, am I still enjoying it? Is the channel still growing at a decent rate? And thirdly, with the content, is it good enough, and is it a good enough level that I can keep doing it and still keep growing with the channel? That's what I would look at. And I'm hoping that because I'm going to go to uni for something that is kind of what I'm doing here, is in the same field, what I'm hoping is that you guys will see improvements in my work, and that it'll improve the content, thus growing the channel more. So, yeah, we'll see how that happens. And in terms of the growth of the channel, PR man for Scuderia, absolutely not. I would not be able to lie every single weekend about how Ferrari is still great, no matter how many fuck-ups they make. In terms of the growth of the channel, I mean, it would be nice if at the end of this year we were to get to, say, 14k. That'd be, I think, a good end-of-year target. So, let's try and get to that. But in terms of where would I like to be at the end of 2026, at least 50k would be ideal in terms of subs by the end of that year. And if I had at least 50k and we're still getting good numbers in terms of viewership, I probably would still continue to do it. Maybe not as much as, previously, but I would still continue to do it. But I just want to, talk about this to let you guys know, what the future of the channel is, basically. It's kind of like a channel update that, I'm going to uni probably for the next 3-4 years. I am going to still be doing YouTube for the next 4.5 years, probably. And then obviously, we'll see after that. I mean, I'll probably let you guys know, like, 4 years from now what my plan is again, and whether I'm going to stop or keep going, but maybe not doing as much, or maybe keep going full time with this. We'll see with that. But yeah, I'm excited for the future, whether it be my job prospects, if I really ace uni as well as possible. And again, if what do you call it? If it improves, if my improvement, or if me doing this uni course improves the way I make videos and do content, then I'm excited for, what it could mean for the channel in terms of that. So yeah, just want to give that quick update there for you guys. Paul James Squibb says, is driver loyalty a thing in F1? If so, who are the most loyal drivers to remain with the same team? Like Matt Letizia at Southampton. I suppose Max at Red Bull and Lewis at Merck come to mind. Yeah, driver loyalty is a lot better than loyalty in football these days, for sure. But it's basically dependent on, is the team providing the driver with a good enough situation year to year. Obviously, Red Bull have, with Max, provided them a good enough situation. Same with Mercedes for Hamilton. Obviously, the reason Alonso has moved around so much is because he's desperately trying to find a front-running car. So yeah, it really is dependent on how good the team is. I mean, in football, I think it's a lot more dependent on social situations and where you grew up and stuff like that. But in F1, it is basically down to, can you provide me a good enough car, to be honest. Let's look at some other comments. That unicorn sounds great, Chazza. Great news, Chazza. You'll knock 'em dead, smash it. My girlfriend did the step up to the Masters in another subject. Good path. Yeah. It's I think as well, it's really good that I know now what I'm doing for the next 4 years, pretty much. At least 3 years. But I think because of the confidence I have in my own ability, I think I will be doing a Masters in 4 years' time. And what do you call it? It's great that I know what I'm doing for the next 4 years. The reason I say that is because a bit of my depression at times does come from like not knowing what the future holds, whether it be for this, my YouTube channel, work, or just life in general, just not knowing what the future is going to hold. But now I know what I've committed myself to, basically, with this YouTube channel, and uni, and even work that I'm still going to do, my part-time job here or there. Now I know I'm committing myself to that for the next 4 years. Now I can just focus on, that 4-year period. Smart move to school, says Sparky Pete. Hey, do what you got to do moving forward in life, as is Mercedes moving forward to another championship. Good for you. Prank says, awesome, man. Push yourself in your studies. You'll do great. Glad to hear, Chazza. Keep up the great work. Thank you so much, Chazza, for the update and all the luck, and all the luck and wishes. Yeah, cheers, guys, for that. I really appreciate it. And yeah, I'm very excited to start uni because I think I will be very good on this course, and also I'm keen to start because it's the start of this journey, possibly to a much better life, and maybe to making this channel, the content a lot better as well. So I'm really excited to, get going and widen my scope in terms of skills and knowledge when it comes to, this whole thing. But, Jesus Christ. I think I'm going to mute my mic a minute. I'm just going to have a quick drink. And then, guys, stick around because we are going to get on to a couple more topics, or 3 more topics, actually. We're now going to get into the technical directive for this Belgian Grand Prix this weekend. So, I was going to quickly have a drink to help my throat, and then we'll get into that in just a second. So just hold on a sec. Right, so let's get into it. So, as we've seen in 2022, porpoising that we expected to be an issue, maybe not as big as it has been quite a big issue. And after the Azerbaijan Grand Prix in Baku, the bouncing, especially with the Mercedes cars, but other cars as well, was so bad that it was decided by the FIA that something had to be done because it was raising safety concerns with, micro concussions that possibly the drivers could suffer with the bouncing constantly. And I think was the right decision. But this is what they had to say with the technical directive. So this is what they said in a statement on the, I think, 19th of June, which I think was the Friday of the Canadian Grand Prix, I believe. They said a technical directive has been issued to give guidance to the teams about the measures the FIA intends to take to tackle the problem. These include 1, closer scrutiny of the planks and skids, both in terms of their design and the observed wear. And number 2, the definition of a metric based on the car's vertical acceleration that will give a quantitative limit for acceptable level of vertical oscillations. Vertical oscillations is a technical term for porpoising. That's basically what oscillations is. The exact mathematical formula for this metric is still being analysed by the FIA, and the Formula 1 teams have been invited to contribute to this process. Now, they had that to say, and then I think a couple weeks later, they issued to the teams the official directive in terms of they will only tolerate a certain amount of bouncing. But then it came out, I think during the British Grand Prix weekend, that some teams are using clever tricks with their floors and are quite possibly flexing their floors for aerodynamic gain. So, how do they do this with their cars? How do they flex their floors? Well, this is a great image. Unfortunately, it's a great image for us. This is actually Zhou Guanyu as he was heading towards the fence at Silverstone, but actually provides us with a fantastic a fantastic picture of the plank and the floor. So you can see the front of the plank. Let me try and zoom in a bit quickly with this picture. Hopefully it doesn't zoom in too much when I do this. Hold on. So you can see here to the right, you see obviously this plank here in the middle. To the right of the plank, you can see there's one hole at the very front there, just behind obviously these 2 tyres. You can see just before you get to the 2 tyres and the suspension and that. You can see here the front of the plank. Now, I think the front of the plank is not allowed to move any more than 2 millimeters from, its position. And the FIA, I think, maybe they'll measure it more so, or will properly measure it after this new technical directive for this weekend has been issued. But they would only measure the front of the plank for this 2 millimeter, I think it was, or 1 millimeter tolerance for how much flexibility you could get away with. So they would only measure the front. So you can see here towards the rear, there's just one big hole there. You can see towards the rear of the plank. Again, the front of the plank is obviously the plank you can see. You should all know what plank looks like. The front of the plank is the far right side, and the rear of the plank is the far left side. What was happening, apparently, again, this is not absolutely confirmed. Well, I'm sure we'll hear more of this in the future once we get confirmation of, just what was happening with this stuff. What was happening, because the FIA was not measuring the rear of the plank for, the tolerance in terms of flexibility and movement, is the thought is that teams were flexing the rear of their floors because the FIA were not actually measuring if there was any flexibility there. And the thought is that there was flexibility not just above or slightly above 1 or 2 millimeters, but possibly 7 or 8 millimeters, past the acceptable point. So that is what they are trying to clamp down on. And the technical directive is basically that the plank and the floor in terms of flexibility has to be absolutely stiff. It cannot have any flexible movement for aerodynamic gain. And the thought is that Ferrari and Red Bull were the biggest culprits when it came to this, and that explains maybe why they were so quick compared to Mercedes and the rest of the field by having flexible floors. So that is what the whole controversy was about. And yeah, the technical directive is now coming in force as of basically tomorrow, when obviously the practice sessions begin, and it obviously will be very interesting to see how it affects the teams. Now, Toto Wolff has come out and said that he doesn't think it will be the silver bullet for them, no pun intended, and he doesn't think it means that Mercedes will automatically just go straight to the top of the order. But this is what Mark Hughes had to say about this technical directive. Now, Mark Hughes, if you don't know, he's one of the best journalists, if I can speak English, in F1. He's works for Sky F1. He actually works in the commentary box with Martin Brundle and David Croft. I think sits there with them, and he also has a column on Sky Sports F1. But he is one of the best journalists out there. And this is what he had to say and his analysis of the situation. And the reason I want to show this is because it's a great analysis, and it does, I think, explain this situation in terms of how it could affect things pretty well. So this is what he had to say. He said, with quite a different upper body aero concept to Red Bull and Ferrari, Mercedes' greater area of exposed floor was effectively cantilever. I think that's how you pronounce it. To be honest, I've never seen that word before, so I don't even know how to pronounce it. Making it much more difficult to control, Hughes wrote. And this article, by the way, he's writing it in terms of, will this allow Mercedes to get back into the fight? That's what I think the column was about. So he's writing it in terms of, will Mercedes be able to compete now with Ferrari and Red Bull? So then, he says that. And then later, limitations in the mechanical aspects of the suspension became apparent in controlling the car's ride. It then became clear that Ferrari and Red Bull had interpreted the regulations concerning the mounting of the underfloor plank differently and were able to allow the plank to sink further into the floor as it touched the ground, giving a cushioning effect to the ride. And then he says, quote, from Spa this weekend, that interpretation will no longer be considered valid if, as is believed by other teams, that mounting method will make a 5 to 6 millimeter lower rear ride height feasible. It would potentially be worth around 0.2 or 0.3 of a second of lap time. And then he goes on to say, Mercedes, even though it set pole in Hungary due to the favourable set of circumstances and no healthy Red Bulls in Q3, Ferrari way out of the tyre temperature window, was still around half a second off the ultimate pace. So the Spa technical directive could well help Mercedes reduce its deficit to the front, but to take on Ferrari and Red Bull on equal terms is likely going to require more development. And effectively, because of this change in the way the floors have to work now, and also when he says, with the change of the floors now, it, according to not just him, but to engineers at Mercedes, it is potentially worth 2 to 3 tenths of a second in terms of bringing Mercedes 2 to 3 tenths of a second closer to Red Bull and Ferrari, which means that still, as he said, and he was right in saying it, that Mercedes, yeah, they'll be closer probably, but they still need like a big upgrade to really get on the absolute equal terms with Ferrari and Red Bull. And obviously they do have, we hear, a big upgrade for this weekend's race. So we will see whether Mercedes are right on the pace with Red Bull and Ferrari. But if they can close a gap by, say, 0.3 of a second, and this upgrade does work for them, then Mercedes definitely can close the gap. But also, this could affect other teams. Ferrari and Red Bull obviously being slower would help Mercedes, and maybe if Alpine and McLaren, if they're running or were running floors that were flexible, maybe that'll bring the rest of the midfield more into play with them as well. We will see how that will work out. But until the sessions and the cars get out on track, we don't know ultimately how or what effect it's going to play on this Formula One season. So we will see this weekend at Spa what happens and whether it allows for a closer and, I guess you could argue, fairer field in Formula One. But we've gone from that, and I hope you guys have been caught up or educated kind of there in terms of the situation. That's basically the rundown of the situation, and in terms of the effect it could have on the very front of the pack. Now, let's get on to Daniel Ricciardo. So yesterday, Daniel Ricciardo was announced that he would not be with the McLaren team for next season, and McLaren announced that he would be, or they would be, parting ways mutually, them and Ricciardo. And this is what Andreas Seidel had to say in terms of regrets about how all the situation worked out and just how it didn't work out with Ricciardo ultimately at McLaren. So let's get into that now. And Andreas said, actually, hold on, let me just clear my throat a moment and we'll get into it. Right, hopefully that should be better. He said, quote, "We have commented many times in the last weeks and months about the challenges we had on Daniel's side of the garage regarding expecting the performances on Lando's side from the car. Daniel has said several times that he just never felt fully comfortable within our car, especially when it was about pushing the car to the absolute limit. That was, in the end, causing, from time to time, this lap time difference that we have seen compared to Lando. At the same time, you have to acknowledge as well that Lando is an outstanding driver. So he was up against one of the best ones in the paddock, and this in the end led us to the decision. We just didn't get it to work," he said. "In the end, for a driver, being able to extract the performance from a car is a team effort, and between the driver and the team, which is true. So I just want to be clear as well that I fully take responsibility as well, being in charge of the team, that we also couldn't find the magic in order to find these percentages that were missing from time to time. And that's why in the end, we came to the conclusion that it is actually the best we go separate ways next year." Very frank and very honest from Andreas, and I like that he said that, because I think ultimately that is the best conclusion of just how this worked out. Ricciardo just couldn't get comfortable within the car to be at his absolute best. Wasn't as good compared to Norris as we expected, and it was simply just not going to work. It doesn't matter how much time you give Ricciardo. I think with this car, I just don't think Ricciardo would have really got on with the car and really got to that level we saw, say, in 2020 with Renault, or obviously in his Red Bull days a few years ago. And it was the right decision for Ricciardo to be leaving McLaren as McLaren to make that decision, because ultimately McLaren need two very competitive drivers, always scoring big points for the team to help them in the Constructors' Championship, when this season it's only been really Lando Norris who's been doing that. And even last season, it was mostly Lando Norris, and Daniel Ricciardo wouldn't really be scoring big points that many times or enough for what McLaren needed, which obviously was a shame for them. And it's a shame that it ended up the way it did. But what we're going to do now is we are going to hear from Daniel Ricciardo and his thoughts as to what happened and the whole situation, as he posted a clip on his Twitter. So I'm just going to quickly plug my headphones in, and then I'll show it on screen for you guys so you guys can hear what Ricciardo had to say. And I got to say as well, this video, let me just grab my headphones a minute. I think I've got them now. Yeah. This video is a bit depressing. I mean, he tries to smile, but his eyes, I mean, if you want to tell if someone's smiling or not, always look at their eyes. If their eyes don't really squint that much or enough, then they're not smiling really. It's just a fake smile. And yeah, Ricciardo tries his best to be upbeat about it, but he's clearly quite depressed about it. Which, to be honest, I completely understand. I would be as well. So yeah, let me just quickly plug these headphones in, and then we'll listen to what Ricciardo had to say here. And, well, I've got the trouble of what I normally have, which is my headphones don't always reach that far to the actual what do you call it? To the actual PC. Right. Let me just play this video and see if it'll... Oh, there you go. Right. The audio things come up now. So, let me get it up quick. Here you go. And I'll go full screen and put it up here a sec. And let me just play it.
Hey everyone. Wanted to share some news.
Can you guys hear that clearly, or do you want it at full volume there? Let me know. I'll just quickly cut back a sec. Yeah, let me know in the chat. Could you hear that clearly, or do you need it to be at the absolute highest volume, or is it too loud at the highest volume? Just let me know in the chat. If the volume's good, then just say yes, or yeah, it's good, or something like that, and then we'll watch the clip. Paul Bartolo says, "See how many assignments you can tie onto the into the channel." Yeah, maybe I could do something like that. Paul James Squibbs in chat says, don't really understand why they can't let everyone have flexible planks if that stops the porpoising. If the porpoising is a health and safety concern, the reason, what the FIA are trying to do is they want to stop the porpoising, but they also don't want the teams flexing. They don't want movable aerodynamic pieces, basically. Because if you allow flexi floors, then you may as well allow, movable rear wings, movable front wings, and the list goes on. Right, yes, very good volume. That is good to hear. Right, so I'll just cut back to it quick. And here we go. So let's listen to what Daniel Ricciardo has to say in regards to him parting ways with McLaren.
Hey everyone. Wanted to share some news. Not great. Bittersweet for sure, but I think it's best you hear it from me. 2022 will be my last year with McLaren. Yeah, just we put in a lot of effort on both sides, but it just hasn't worked the way we wanted. So the team's decided to make a change next year, and we had a lot of discussions, but in the end we agreed that it was the right thing for both of us. I will continue to do the rest of this year, absolutely. You give it my all. So that's that. I think for the future, what lies ahead, I'm not sure yet. Not sure yet, but we'll see. I look back on this time with McLaren, back with a smile. I learned a lot about myself. I think it helped me next step in my career, but I think just in general in life. I think from a results point of view, for sure, like to consistently get the results in that form that I was after, wasn't always there, and made some weekends tough.
I got to say, sorry, I got to say quick. I know he smiled a couple times, but you can tell he's very downbeat about this news, and just the way it worked out, and looks just very depressed, which is so sad seeing him like this. But I mean, I don't think you could find anyone who wouldn't be depressed about this, to be honest. But just wanted to make that point.
I felt those absolutely, but I also have many happy memories of my time at the team. I think about Monza. I think about standing on the top step. I think about bringing the team their first win since 2012. Like that sort of stuff was awesome, and see the smile on everyone's faces, to be in that moment. That's something I'll never forget. So there's a lot of good stuff to take from this as well. The sport, I still love it. This hasn't affected any of that. I still have that fire in me, that belief in my belly that I can do this at the highest level. So all that stuff's still there. But just wanted to say, appreciate everyone's support through the highs, lows, everything in between. This isn't it for me, but we'll see what lies ahead. I want to say appreciate you.
And there you go. That's what he had to say. And I'll just cut back here. There you go. Again, he tries to, try to smile about it, which, he's trying to cope the best he can with the news. Obviously, I mean, he knows his time at McLaren did not go to plan. But you can tell that he's gutted about the way it happened. So, it's a shame that it happened that way. But, just let me know, guys, in the chat if you want, quickly, as to, what you thought of that clip. Paul Bartella says, interesting, he's wearing a plain t-shirt and black, so definitely depressed. Think he'll be motivated and a good buy for someone. I thought it was interesting to say this isn't it for me, which tells me that he thinks he's, because obviously behind the scenes, obviously he'll know what his chances are in terms of getting a contract with another team. Tells me that he thinks he's got a good chance still, which is good. I really, really want him to be on the grid, because to be honest, if he gets a seat, say, at Alpine for next year, that's probably going to be his last, maybe not contract, but F1 team. So he's probably only got 2 or 3 years left. So I really hope this isn't it for him, because I still think he's got something to give in Formula 1. But I've actually got to go and have dinner soon. So what I'm going to do, guys, I'm going to quickly get into my final little topic here, which is a track analysis. So here obviously is the track, the longest track on the Formula 1 calendar. It is, 4.5? Is it 4.5 kilometers long or even more? Can't remember exactly, but it's a very long circuit. The lap times here normally at quickest, 142, 143. And it's a challenging circuit. It challenges the cars in basically every department, whether the car's got good mechanical grip, aerodynamic grip, straight line speed, reliability. That's why, for me, it's the best track in the world, and also tests the driver's ability at everything. Overtaking, obviously having to defend, because it is very possible to overtake here, so you have to defend your position quite a bit around here. It does rain quite a bit, so tests your wet weather skills and tests your skill in the middle sector, whether it's wet or dry. So we're going to quickly look at an onboard lap of the Spa Francorchamps circuit, and there are some differences with the Spa track, which we will see as the lap goes on. And this is a clip I found. from earlier this year. I think the video this channel was from was Marvin Lucas. If you want to go check that guy out on YouTube, then make sure to do so. But he comes into turn 1, and you can see turn 1 on the exit as he comes through it. There, gravel, all there now. That is not a tarmac runoff anymore. Now it is just gravel. So on turn 1 on Sunday, can't be doing any, going deep and just running off the track, or else you'll be basically at the back of the grid or out of the race. Obviously, they're through Eau Rouge and Radiar. The runoff areas have changed. I think they've made them. Wider and less dangerous. And now he comes on to the Kemmel Straight, the main place for overtaking here at Spa. And now comes into Les Combes. And pretty fast right-hander. Obviously, he's going a lot slower in this, whatever this is. I think this was a track day that this guy was doing. Takes that car there and comes into this corner, which is very tricky to, I think, get right. Well, it is for me, certainly on the F1 game. Hitting the apex of that corner, very, very important. Obviously, takes the shortcut there, but that is not actually where the track layout will be going, because he will be going into that no-name left-hander that we normally have. Now into Pouhon. Very fast left-hander. Won't be flat out this year because the cars don't have the grip that they used to have. But it will be still a very fast corner where you've got to make sure you get the entry absolutely correct to that corner. Then you come into the Fanya chicane, I think that is. And yeah, got to make sure you keep it nice and smooth through these corners to keep a good flow. And now comes into Stavelot 1 and 2. And then comes into the final sector, which is just absolutely flat out until the final bus stop chicane. And this is obviously as well a popular place where you can make overtakes work. There's also there, I think you just saw there's some gravel on the exit there, and that's because we have had accidents in the past where drivers have gone straight on and into the barriers, so thankfully that is there. And then he comes into the bus stop chicane where overtakes can be made up the inside, around the outside, so you can go for the inside of the second part, and then onto the start-finish straight. It is a brilliant racetrack, and thankfully we are back here at Spa, and hopefully this weekend we'll actually get a proper Grand Prix. But guys, I am going to leave it there. Rook says, I think you should open the stream with this, maybe after the top 3 team segment. Yeah, probably could do that. But I'm gonna leave it there, guys, because I have been live for 2 hours and 10 minutes. It's been a pretty long stream, but I have enjoyed it. Thank you guys for coming along this evening. And yeah, if you are new to the channel, don't forget to subscribe for more content like this. Bottom right of the screen, you do it there. And if you do subscribe, make sure to hit the notifications bell as well. And don't forget, guys, I will be live tomorrow at 6 p.m. UK time. That's 1 hour after practice 2 finishes to cover practice and what happened, but preview qualifying for Saturday at Spa Francorchamps. And then obviously Saturday and Sunday, I've already laid out the schedule for that, but I will get into more of that obviously tomorrow when we get closer. F1 watching, if you haven't already, don't forget to smash the like button and share this video and channel everywhere you can. Don't forget as well to follow me on Twitter at ChazHD5 and join my Discord server link below in the description. And as well, in the description, there are some videos that you guys can watch. I think 4 videos you can watch. A video about how Fernando Alonso screwed over Alpine in the Oscar Piastri saga. About how Daniel Ricciardo has only himself to blame for his McLaren woes. About how Carlos Sainz is not an elite F1 driver and how Lando Norris will not have the F1 career you think he will. All of those videos are in the description down below. So if you're bored and you want to have something to watch, make sure to watch those videos if you haven't already. But guys, cheers for tonight, and I'll see you tomorrow at 6 p.m. UK time. And until then, it has been me, Chazza HD. Goodbye.